Never fear, never fear, never fear. I am here, I am here, I am here. How you doing, everybody? Hey, hey, hey. Santita Jackson Show still moving in, still getting a lot of things together. I'm so glad to be with you today, everybody. Like and share. Hey, Kathy. Like and share, like and share. Dynamo Dave of Duluth. Like and share, like and share. Hey, let's get to it today, everybody. Let's get to it. We've got Dr. Shanita Knighton. He'll be coming up shortly. A little bit of the good news. And we're going to be talking about Cornel West. Well, the Archdiocese of Chicago disinvited him from the biggest Black Catholic congregation in the city. I thought that was interesting. They said because he's a presidential candidate. So I want to know what you think about that. What do you think about that? Father Mike Flager, who's nationally known, someone who is just a hero in the community because of all of the wonderful things that he does. Every year, he invites Cornel West to speak for Black History Month. And Cornel West said, I wasn't coming as a candidate, I was coming as the historian that I am, as the scholar that I am. But the Archdiocese called Father Mike, and they're in charge of the church actually. And they said no. So I want to know what you think about that. Um, who can speak in the church and who cannot speak in the church? And it's very interesting because remember, the Catholic Church is not just a church, it's a state. You have the city of London, which is where the banks are. That's in the middle of London. You've got the city of the District of Columbia. That's where the military power is. The city of London is where the Western banking powers reside. But the city of the Vatican is really the home of religious power in the Western world. Yeah. So they have the city of the Vatican is a country that dispenses passports. So the Pope is actually a head of state. He's not just the head of the church, and maybe that's why people in the church have to be confirmed and they have to jump through so many hoops and reveal so much of themselves to the church because I guess de facto they're citizens. Think about that. Everybody, please like and share. Hey, Miss Wanda, I am here. I'm sending everybody so much love today. I am here. I am here. I am here. You all are wondering if I'm here. Andre, my god brother, Robert Williams, Renee Criswell. Hey, sweetie. Ashley King down there in Memphis, Linear Bob, Dynamo Dave of Duluth, Shadow Star Asian, Reno, Nevada. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Let me know, Shadow. And then, of course, you see these angels on my shoulder. I got that. Michelle Torres, how you doing, sweetie? And Kathy Johnson. And let me see who else. Miss Wanda from North Carolina, the place where I was born. That's right. I was born when my parents were students at North Carolina A&T. Although I'm a Bison, I still carry that Aggie pride with me. Robert Williams, Barbara Bacon, Jewel, Dawn. So everybody, do me a favor, like and share, like and share. What I need you to do, because as we pivot, I need to grow. I need to kind of outsmart the algorithm. And there was a point where we were streaming millions of people per week, but I guess as my politics tipped more left, they started shutting that down. So what I need you to do is like and share right now, and like and subscribe to the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Like and subscribe to the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. In fact, if you would move over there, that would help a whole lot. The Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Like and share, like and share, like and subscribe. The Santita Jackson and Friends page is the only page where I can accept friends. People keep going to the Santita Jackson page. That's a friends page, which I opened because you have to open that before you open a fans page. And they continue to kick people off. Don't go to that page. Go to Santita Jackson and Friends. Join there. But also like and subscribe at the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. How you doing, Carol? I hope you're being safe out there. They want you to stay in today out there in LA. Please do that, okay? My dear sister from another mister, sending you much love. Okay, all right. I want to make sure that I'm pronouncing your name correctly, Shadow. All right, everybody. Sending you so much love today. Sending you so much love today. And let's get right to it. I'm going to bring on Dr. Shanita Knighton just to find out from her what is going on with infection prevention. But this is some of the good news that I would like to leave with you, that I would like to give to you today. I was thinking, because now I'm beginning to get a lot of calls about uh, my having been let go by WCPT. And a lot of people have had a lot of expressions of support. And for that, I'm grateful. Just want you to know that it's never a good feeling to be let go. But the thing is, I'm not sad about it because I'm looking at the next adventure. I don't know what God has around the corner for me. I really don't. And I'm up for it. At this point, I'm a very grown woman. And I think it's important for you not to cry over the spilled milk, mop it up, clean it up, and go forward. And I heard Aretha Franklin's version of God will take care of you just running through my head. For some reason, God put it there. Be not dismayed, whatever betide, God will take care of you. Beneath his wings, a love abides. God will take care of you through every day, through every way, all of the way. Know that God is taking care of me, God is taking care of you, and no matter what happens to you, no matter what happens, you can make it. You can make it. And as my grandmama Helen used to say to me, if you can't take it, you can't make it. So you got to be able to take it. You got to be able to take it if you want to make it. So let's move forward. Let's continue to talk about the issues of the day from your perspective. The reason I approached Ukraine the way that I approached it is because I want to deal in truth. I want to deal with balls and strikes, everybody. That's what I want to do. Um, because I knew that there was another view. I'm going to talk to you about the Democratic Party because, quite frankly, my father rebuilt it. And it's not just that, that's the personal side, which is but he didn't rebuild this. This was not his idea. Um, but I think that we all rebuilt it. And we have the obligation, if not the right, to engage in critical critique. And I have said to people, including at that former station of mine, it is not my job to deliver black people to the Democratic Party. That is not what Reverend did. Reverend was bargaining to get vending contracts to black people, all of that while he was running for president. Because we began to understand the business of politics too. But this was about opening up the process so that the progressive point of view had a seat at the table. Okay? That is what is important. That is important. So, in my position on a balanced policy in the Middle East, knowing that lions and lambs have to lie down together, knowing that God has promised us a seat at the table in the presence of our enemies, because your enemy, your opponent is God's child too. I'll hold to that. I'm not going to move 1 inch on my position on Palestine and Israel. I think what's happening to the people of Israel and the people of Palestine is sinful. I'm not going to move on that. And I'm here for it. I'll pay for that. I'm good for that. So let's keep on going. Let's keep on raising the critical issues of the day. And I want you to be on that journey with me. Are you with me? And we're going to be getting an 800 number so you can call in. We're going to be working through a lot of issues over the next week. And so everybody, please like and share, like and share. Do me that favor. Hey, Natalie Daly, like and share, like and share, like and subscribe at the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Please like and subscribe at the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel and meet me on the Santita Jackson and Friends page, not the Santita Jackson page, the Santita Jackson and Friends page. So, as I shared with you, my good news is that no matter what, God is going to take care of you. God is taking care of me, and I want you to know that I feel that. I feel that. I've got these angels on my shoulder. Thank you, Natalie Cole. And I just wanted to share that with you today so that you knew that I know where my blessings come from. And I know where my protection comes from. And I know that for you too. So everybody, let's get right to it. I'm going to try and get Dr. Shanita Knighton up. But we're going to be talking about Father Flager and the Saints of Minor Church, largest Black congregation, Catholic congregation in Chicago. And what happened? What happened? Dr. Knighton?
Good morning.
Good morning. I want you, hey, my dear beloved sister, before we get into the rest of the show, of course, we have to talk with you. Thank you for bearing with me as I'm running a little late today. But do you have any news on the infection prevention front?
Okay, so I would just caution people that we are still right in the peak of seasons of viruses. So meaning RSV, flu, COVID, common cold, respiratory illnesses are really running rampant right now. We're also watching globally as well, as there are like the child outbreaks of pneumonia or children outbreaks of pneumonia. So just reminding people to stay ready so we don't have to get ready. We have to
Mm.
look at the trends for which things travel. It's not being fearful, just understanding that if we are looking at the trends amongst other countries and the outbreaks that they're having, we're only one plane, train, and automobile away from having those same illnesses within our same country. So it's just a reminder that yes, it is important to make sure you're cleaning your hands. It's important to not downplay illnesses, and it's important to understand that just how they used to say when a kid gets a cold and an adult gets the flu,
Mm.
it's the same thing when we talk about health disparities as well amongst minorities. So just a reminder that where many people may gather, what are some ways in which you can protect yourself? If you're networking, something as simple as making sure that you're cleaning your hands in between eating food and
Hmm.
shaking hands. But really just being mindful of what it is that you're doing to make sure that you're cutting down on your risk for infections. And hygiene again seems so simple, but it's the simple most important way that you can prevent the spread of germs, as well as even thinking about what it is that we use our hands for. We're the only species that uses our hands the most, so we must be conscious of what we're doing with them.
Well, I want to thank you for that because I went out to lunch, brunch yesterday. And what was really striking to me was this, Dr. Knighton. I washed my hands rather vigorously before I left home. And then I looked up, and I went to the restroom and washed my hands when I got to the restaurant. And I was like, my hands are dirty. But between getting on the elevator, getting in the car, getting out the car, opening the door in the restaurant, guess what? That's what happened to me. Hold on one second. Hold on. Shapiro Wells, who's becoming my producer.
Good morning, Santita. You have Dr. Gibbs, the white on.
Okay. And well, I'm going to go to them, but I've got Dr. Knighton over here. I'm going to let you say hello to her so everybody can say hello to her before we go. Hold on one second. Here she is. Dr. Knighton.
Good morning.
You got Chapearl and Dr. Wells I mean there's Chapearl Wells and Dr. Gibbs and Dr. D. Dwight McKee.
Good morning. Hey, Dr. Nene. How you doing? I'm doing pretty good. Yes.
Well, you know what? I want everyone, please keep your hands clean. Literally, keep your hands clean. Keep your hands clean. And so we are going to continue on with the show. And I'm sending you so much love, Dr. Knighton. If you want to listen, you're more than welcome to.
Yeah, you know that I do.
Okay, stay right there. Saint Sabina cancels Cornell West speech after demand from the Archdiocese of Chicago. The Archdiocese of Chicago, according to this WBBM News Radio report, uh, is forbidding noted scholar Dr. Cornell West from speaking at the St. Sabina Church during Black History Month, which he's been doing for 30 years. Uh, Father Flaker, who is the head of that congregation, said Dr. West has been coming to St. Sabina every February for more than 25 years. It's felt like a very, very long time before I moved back to Chicago. And of course, he's a professor of philosophy and Christian practice at Princeton. He's from Harvard. He has uh, if the Ivy League credentials mean anything to you, he's got those bona fides. Everyone knows he's a brilliant scholar. But Father Flaker said he received a call from the Archdiocese around noon. And he said that West, who's a potential candidate for the White House, he's an actual candidate, was not coming with a political agenda. He was coming to talk history, as he does all the time. Father Flagler said, and I quote, the cardinal has said he's not allowed to speak here because he's a presidential candidate. I explained to the person who I spoke to on the phone that he's not coming to talk about running, not talk about being a candidate. He's coming to talk about Black history, which is what he's always spoken about. Well, um, that was not enough. And so Dr. Westhead, for the past 30 years, I've been blessed to preach at the historic St. Sabina Church in Chicago, led by my very dear brother, the courageous and prophetic Father Michael Flaker. Sadly, it was canceled. Please see his statement, which I just shared with you, and I want to talk with you about it. I think it's the ultimate irony that the Catholic Church, the Archdiocese of Chicago, would forbid a presidential candidate from speaking from their pulpit. And I'll tell you why. Because the Catholic Church is actually a state. You've got the city of London, that's a city within the city, within London. And that's where the Western banking establishment resides. You've got the District of Columbia, which is where the military establishment for the Western world resides. And then you've got the city of the Vatican, which is a city inside of Rome, which is the home to the Catholic Church. Whenever you see the Pope waving from St. Peter's Square, he's not in Rome, he's technically in the city of the Vatican. And the city of the Vatican, why is that important? Because the city of the Vatican is actually a country, which technically makes the Pope a head of state. He's not just this religious figure and who we just listen to, and he tells us how we need to live, and he makes these moral pronouncements. No, yo. He is a political figure of great moment. He is a head of state. The city of the Vatican dispenses passports. If you look around the world, they have embassies, they have consulates. How many churches do you know have embassies and consulates? My point exactly. They're a country. They are a country. So for them to get involved in this political process, which is what they are all the time, because they are, in fact, a political instrument, is very interesting to me. So I want Dr. Gibbs and Dwight McKee to talk about that, because I think it goes to who is controlling the message in our churches, not just Black churches, but all churches. Who's controlling the message? And we have talked about corporate media, but no one has talked about the corporatization or the corporatized church. So, Dr. David Gibbs, brilliant historian from the University of Arizona, and we have got Dr. D. Dwight McKee. Dr. D. Dwight McKee, the Pope is the head of state. He is a head of state. He's not just some innocuous figure, And so you talk to me. What do you make of Dr. Cornel West being disinvited from St. Sabina?
Well, I think it was a little deeper than just because he's running for president. Part of the reasons that you just named is that the Vatican entertains presidential candidates and presidents all the time. In fact, they have an embassy. They have liaisons to countries. It is a state it's the smallest city state in the world. And actually, structurally, when Catholics tithe, they are actually paying taxes. In fact, Hitler, one of the things that he did in Mussolini had done is when they set up the Vatican City, is they required all the German Catholics to give a percentage of their pay directly to the Vatican, whether they were Catholic or not. And so it is a principality who has a prince who is the Pope. And it has been operating like that for a long time. I think it has more to do with the relationship between the Jews and the Catholics and the Muslims. The Jews and the Muslims have been warring since Esau. They go back at the brotherhood when they were brothers, and they begin to fight coming out of the womb. And that fight has been going on for eons and eons and eons. The Christians got involved in the fight, particularly the Catholic Church, when they would fight for who was going to be in control of the Holy Land. Now, understand that the Catholic economy is based on relics and based on controlling the holy sites. Those things were set up by Helena, Constantine's mother, who went to the Holy Land and set up all of the holy sites, and came back with the Holy Cross and the other crosses that the thieves on the cross crucified with. She split that up among the churches, gave each one of them a little part of the cross, gave them some of the bones of the saints, and then allowed people, in order to have access to forgiveness, had the priests use the relics as that point by which they then had to pay in order to have access to forgiveness and penance. And so the actual economy of the Catholic Church is built around controlling the holy sites and the relic from the Holy Land, from Israel. And that's what the Crusades were about. The Crusades, what was lasted hundreds of years, was about whether or not the Catholic Church or the Muslim world, where these holy sites were, who was going to have control over them and be able to, from the Catholic side, negotiate the value of those sites. It's almost like renting a McDonald's franchise. When you have a relic that they bless, and then they put in a commerce plate. In fact, that's what Luther was about. Luther's Protestant movement was a reaction to the Catholic Church using the relics in the holy site for the purposes of commerce. That's what he was actually protesting.
Well, hold on one moment, Dwight. Hold on. Everyone wants to know who's speaking. This is still the Santita Jackson Show, everybody. I'm going to be back up on AM 950 radio tomorrow. They have been eager to keep me on the air, and we're going to do that, but there were some things that I needed to work out on my side. So I'm talking to, you're going to hear from Dr. David Gibbs shortly, historian from the University of Arizona. We're going to hear from Reverend Stephen Thurston. Let's see if we can get him up. Chaparral and Reverend Dr. Todd Geary and Toussaint Warner. But we're going to, and I'll try and get Pastor Thurston up myself. But we're talking, the person you're hearing, because that is the question that's being asked, Dr. D, is Dwight McKee, noted social scientist, the dean of the Ma'afa Redemption Project here in Chicago, of the New Mount Pilgrim Missionary Baptist Church, one of the founders of Operation Push. You're hearing him go through this history so that we can really understand a lot of the backstory, because we need to understand why it is that Dr. Cornel West was disinvited by the Archdiocese of Chicago, no less, from speaking at the St. Sabina Church, which is one of the largest Black Catholic congregations in the country. Indeed, it is the largest one in Chicago. He's been speaking at this church for decades during Black History Month. He was not going as a candidate. He was going to do what he has been doing for decades, speak on Black history. But the Archdiocese said, no, he's a candidate, a political candidate, so he is not welcome there. And that's very, very interesting. So Dwight McKee, affectionately known as Dr. D, he's so brilliant and so learned. He was taking us through the history of the Catholic Church, because the assertion is that the Catholic Church is not merely a church. The Catholic Church has embassies and consulates and diplomatic relations. Why? Because technically they are a country. They dispense passports. You need to know that. So they, in and of themselves, they're the perfect confluence, the perfect convergence of church and state. Dwight McKee, please continue.
And so a guy like Dr. West, who has been as known in his struggle to be very pro pro justice and equality for the Palestinians, is a real threat to the Zionism, and is a real hero to the countries, the Arab states. In fact, I stopped by and saw him Saturday at a pro-Palestinian consortium where he and Jill Stein was dealing with the issue of Palestine. Understand that Israel is divided between Jerusalem. Israel itself is divided between the Christians, the Muslims, and the Jews. And the economy is dispersed between those interests. And so each of the holy sites, the holy sepulchre, the tomb, the places where Jesus was born and did miracles, the upper room, they're divided among the Christian sects. So the Ethiopians own, against control of one side, and the Jewish church is in control of another side, and the Catholic church is in control of another side. And because the chief economy is based around Christian tourism, then they make a substantial amount of the income that comes out of Israel, comes out of these two groups. And so it is a tremendous source of income for these church constituency. And part of this fight is who's going to control these holy sites. Who's going to control the Dome of the Rock. The Jews will control that, the Muslims will control that. Who's going to control the Wailing Wall? Is it in Jewish territory or is it in Islamic territory? There's a lot of money that surrounds religion. And so a guy like Dr. West, who has rebellion salt of thought, becomes a real threat in some levels and can easily be disbarred from one faction or another.
Well, I want to hear from you, everybody. What do you think about this? Continue to like and share, like and subscribe on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. The Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Let me know what you believe. Call me. You can't call me, not yet, but in a couple of days you will be able to. So let me know what your thoughts are. Dr. Gibbs,
That's good morning.
good morning. Good morning. I don't think we understand just how politicized all of this is, so you talk to us.
Well, Dwight's always correct that religion and money have often gone together. And we can see that in the case of the Catholic Church, which doesn't owe it a lot of money, a lot of property, a lot of extremely valuable property. And that has throughout centuries influenced the politics of the church. The Spanish Civil War, for example, the church played an ultra-conservative role back in the extreme right, which was in defense of property, which much of the church controlled. Well, on the other hand, the current pope has been, for lack of a better term, a very progressive pope. He has I'll speak frankly, I'm not a Catholic and I have no particular attachment to religion, but he has been a very progressive pope, and he has spoken out with what strikes me as an effectively moral voice. It's significant that during the 2016 campaign, Bernie Sanders, who also is not Catholic, met with the Pope and saw him precisely in those terms as a voice for international justice. So the Catholic Church has played multiple ideological roles, sometimes very much associated with its connection to property, sometimes not. But in any case, I think what's happening now in terms of the politics is the power of the Democratic Party, and it's very hard for me to believe the decision by the Archdiocese of Chicago not to invite Cornel West was anything other than a political decision to marginalize a candidate who was challenging the Democratic Party. The Democrats are becoming extremely ruthless in their determination to win this election at all costs. And I'm virtually certain that the Democrats have prevailed upon the Archdiocese not to allow any third-party candidate to speak, not to give any additional credibility to any third-party candidate. Maybe especially not to Cornel West, because I suspect that's considered the biggest threat to Biden at this point. So that's how I would see it, is the church was presenting this as a politically neutral decision, whereas in reality, this was simply the Democratic National Committee speaking through the Archdiocese.
And what is the danger of that, Dr. Gibbs?
Well,
or is there?
It's a loss to democracy, basically. The majority of the population does not want to see either Trump or Biden as our next president. The majority of Democrats don't want to see Biden as the nominee. The majority of people do not see Biden as an effective or energetic leader, quite the opposite. But the Democratic National Committee has decided that's what's going to happen, and the public will be damned. And they do not want to see any debate, any alternative to Biden, either within the Democratic Party or nationally. They want Biden to be coordinated without democratic process, or with as little democratic process as humanly possible. And that means, again, I guess one thing that impresses me very strongly is the extent to which we're a culture that despises debate and open discussion. Cornel West basically represents debate and open discussion of the sort that the Democratic Party simply wants to suppress as much as it can. There's, of course, also the Israel-Palestine issue. The fact that Cornel West has been very outspoken on this issue, and not just recently, but over the course of his career. And again, that's something the Democratic Party and the Israel lobby and a whole series of vested interests associated with the military-industrial complex, closely connected to the Democratic Party, does not want to hear. So there's the specific issue of Israel-Palestine. I might add to that also the issue of Ukraine. He's been very outspoken against U.S. intervention in Ukraine, at least equally unpopular in the Democratic establishment. So on multiple issues, he's considered beyond the pale, somebody whose voice should not be heard, should be suppressed as much as possible, as much as legally possible. And they're using their influence on the Catholic Church in Chicago to prevent him from speaking, essentially. And that's where the Democratic Party is right now. It has very strong authoritarian tendencies that are very disturbing to me.
Yeah, but Democrats want to put that on Trump. What do you think about that?
Well, of course, Trump also, there's no doubt, Trump is a deeply authoritarian figure, and we have multiple examples of that. It's very easy to come up with statements he's made, actions he's taken, not just January 6th, but many actions that have strongly authoritarian overtones. And he said many disturbing things about immigrants poisoning the blood of the nation. And so we all heard that. It's all true and all disturbing. I guess what I'm suggesting is that I'm not sure the Democratic Party is that much better, frankly, on the issue of authoritarianism. We also see authoritarianism there as well. And, they see it as virtuous authoritarianism, justified authoritarianism, but it's authoritarianism all the same. It's not democracy. I don't think the Democratic Party, at this point in time, maybe ever, was a very democratic institution.
They never were. They never were. I'm going to try and get... They never were. I'm going to try and get Reverend Stephen Thurston, but they never were. This is what we were dealing with, and we saw this when Reverend ran for president. And, it's not a democratic institution. That is not what it is. And all the quiet part is being said out loud everywhere now. Pastor Thurston?
I'm here.
Okay, we don't have enough lines, but we're working it out this morning. How about that? But, you're joining, of course, Dr. D, Dwight McKee. You're joining Dr. David Gibbs, Reverend Dr. I think we got to get Jeanette if we can. We've got Reverend Dr. Todd Urey, and we've got Tucson Werner, who is a brilliant media mogul and media expert, media critic. And so we can't wait to hear from all of them. But you talked to me. I mean, we were making the point that, and you know this having studied over at Oxford and all of these places all over the world, but you are first a Morehouse man. All right, I love it, I love it, I love it. Bison in the house, boop, boop. Okay, HBCUs, you're taking over. That having been said, I felt that it was important while they disinvited this political candidate and Dwight McKee and Dr. Gibbs have been making some brilliant points. The Catholic Church is not just a church, it's a state. It's a country. They have consulates and embassies. They dispense passports. The Pope is a head of state. So it's like the ultimate hypocrisy for them to disinvite him. But Dwight was saying, no, they control, religious relics. And so, there's this tender agreement between the Jewish state and the Islamic state and the Catholic Church on who controls what relics in the religious world. And then there's, of course, the Vatican Bank, which is one of the biggest, most profitable banks in the world. I mean, there is just a lot going on here. But Dr. Gibbs made the point that, no, the Democratic establishment, you're watching their hand here. They don't want this man talking because he's a critic of that for which they stand. They don't stand for Palestinian justice and Israeli security. They don't do that. There is a lot that's going on underneath here. Reverend Thurston, talk to us. What was your first reaction when you heard that they had disinvited Dr. West?
That black bodies are still constantly being policed.
Mm.
Our bodies, our voices, our movement, our alignment, they seek to control and influence the black church with dollars and trips to Israel and tell false narratives. It's a lot of, as you mentioned, undercurrents that take place, things that happen behind the scenes, strings that are pulled. And it's disheartening. This gentleman, this brilliant scholar, this proclaimer of truth and gospel has been coming to this place to share for 23, 24, 25 years, something of that nature. Professional orator who knows how to adjust the content of his message based upon the constructs that might be presented to him. Mm-hmm. And so to dismiss his brilliance and to miss his voice, it's troubling, it's problematic. And it shows, for me, that somebody's scared of some truth being told. Why silence someone or something if there's no fear attached to it? You have no problem with the points that he makes original. He's coming from a substantive place, and why silence him? So it's speaking to deeper issues, and it helps us to recognize who's aligned with who, who's attached to who, who's funded by who. All of that, just that evilness and that darkness and the underhandedness, it comes to the light eventually.
Well,
have your eyes open.
Well, let me ask you this: as adherents to not just the Catholic Church, but to the Church, as religious adherents, should we not be asking these questions now? Because now we have to ask where the money is in the church. I think, but we always have. Maybe that's why Jesus overturned the table. I don't know. You help.
Yes, that question has to be raised. I raised some issue several weeks back on some of the religious blogs because I addressed this issue and talked about how white dollars, evangelical dollars, have infiltrated the black church, turning many of our pulpits into plantations, where your messaging is being controlled, your ability to use your prophetic voice is being silenced, and people in churches of all colors need to pay attention to what's said, what's not allowed to be said, who's invited, who's not allowed to be invited to share those platforms, because the church is being twisted and manipulated, I believe, to push propaganda in a lot of instances, rather than use its prophetic voice to raise the issues of justice.
But Pastor, what do we do about that? I mean, what do we do? Do we have the power to do anything about it?
Say that one more time, Santita.
I'm sorry, do we have the power to do anything about that?
Yes, we have the power to raise our voices. We vote, especially in the black church, with our feet and with our pocketbooks. And when you put pressure on that pastor, why is this? Who is this? I don't agree with this. As a pastor, if those people push back hard enough against me, raise enough questions, stop coming, stop giving, it impacts a whole lot. And I've got to pay attention to what the needs are of the people that I'm seeking to serve. Not make myself ends, I'm serving them.
Dwight?
Can I ask this real quickly? Yeah, thanks for giving me this little space. But also understand that the Vatican Bank is heavily invested in the arms industry. They own several arms companies. That's what the scandal was about a couple of years ago with the Vatican Bank. And they're direct investment, so they make a lot of money themselves off of these wars. In fact, that's what Godfather 3 is about. Godfather 3 is about the scandal of the Vatican Bank, which the rumors is got so intense when the new Pope came in and tried to arrest the Vatican Bank for these different dirty deals that he was actually murdered. That's what Godfather 3 deals with.
In a month. In a month, Dwight. In a month, and it was predicated upon this book, In God's Name. You need to read it. Because it was just, remember, because everybody was shocked. I was in high school, Dwight. I'm riding school. They have just installed this Pope. He had not been there a month. Oh, he had a heart attack. I said,
and his first move was to clean up the Vatican Bank. It was run by a gangster from out of Cicero named Father Martinez. And we came in and removed him. And before you knew it, he had gotten removed.
They removed him.
Look at the movie. Godfather 3.
I'm not going back and watch the movie today, Dwight.
Watch the movie, and if you can, get the book In God's Name, because In God's Name, it is just. I read that when I was about 14, and my mouth was like, huh? So when he was killed, I had a chill in my heart because I was always studying assassinations and things like that because we lived under the threat of that. I mean, that's just the nature of my life. So I was curious. I was always trying to find out the story behind the story. Yes, even as a little girl, because that's just the life that that's the life that we've led. So, well, let me, Reverend Dr. Yeri, your thoughts.
Good morning, Santita, and to all of my colleagues. And certainly the context is helpful, but I think we need to possibly expand it a bit. We've talked about the inter-politics, the INTER. We haven't discussed the intra-politics of the church or the intra-politics of the Chicago diocese. I think some of this is tied to, number one, recognizing that the Pope is a head of state, that the cardinals basically serve as cabinet members to the Pope to advance the policy positions of the Pope as a head of state through the 1.4 billion religious adherents around the world. The economic interests that are advanced, the property interests that are protected. At the end of the day, you do not invite someone that may take a policy position that stands in contrast with your head of state if it's not been vetted. That's one. Two, the one who is issuing the invitation has been an irritant to the Chicago diocese, the archdiocese, for a long time. They've been coming at Father Plager for a number of years, over and again. Many of us went to seminary, whether it was in Hyde Park, where all of the seminaries are, up on the North Shore, where I went to school in Evanston. Many of us, we had our social justice molding and training through the exposure to the work of Saint Sabina, this oddity of a white priest who had a very curious and authentic justice perspective that resonated with Black people, recognizing that empowerment was not just spiritual, but it was economic, it was political, it was personal, it was social. And so what you have is this fear of threat, much like Herod when he hears of the birth of Jesus, that these wise men are coming looking to have an encounter with the one that has been relegated and regulated. Herod then says, go find Jesus and let me know when you find him so I can go worship him too. It is a threat to the infrastructure
of the Catholic Church in the policy positions that are often protected. That if Dr. West comes in, even in his assertions of understanding Black history, you can't detach Black history from global policy. And so I think it is some self-protecting, one, that the cardinal does not want to have to answer to the Pope. The church does not want to be put in a position where there are some discussions that may lead to policy conflict within, quote, the church, which is actually the state, but also to make sure that they confine and limit the ever expanding and reach and influence of Father Michael Flager. And so I'm intrigued. I don't think the Democratic National Committee, I respectfully, I'm loath to challenge Dr. Gibbs, so I'm not doing that. But the DNC doesn't have that much juice to be able to force this issue. I think it is more a phobia within the structure that the Catholic Church through the archdioceses around the country does not want to be put in a position where they have to answer for some of the policy conflict that's going on and will rise to the occasion in this election. And so I think a lot of this is self-protective, but also monitoring and managing Father Flager's reach to be able to have influence on public discourse and global policy that challenges most cardinals, members of the Pope's cabinet, and may very well even be thought of as a challenge to the Pope himself.
Well, I hear you about the DNC. The only thing is, though, it's the corporate interests inside of the DNC that have the power. Because that's one of the things that you see. The DNC is not just the DNC, it's corporate interest. And we're seeing the confluence of that. There's just a lot going on here, and the quiet part is being said out loud. Toussaint, Werner, I'm so glad that you're here. A lot of young people, and you're very, very connected to that demographic, are very critical of institutions now. More critical, and critical in a deeper way, I think, that maybe we've seen in generations or ever, because we have more information now. I know our parents came into a particular awareness, or certainly mine did, in the 60s and the 70s. They began to really understand how the sausage was made. But now we've lived through assassinations and on and on and on, and the mistrust of our governmental institutions, our religious institutions, our health institutions, all the institutions really is not great. So how do you think this is being interpreted when you look at Dr. West being disinvited from this prominent pulpit? Toussaint.
Good morning, you guys. I don't know if we are critical. I think we're more just disconnected. And I think because we're disconnected, it's easy to pull the wool over our eyes. We're not paying attention in the first place. When I think about it, politics is war on paper, and then politics is the engine that runs business. So we're ingratiated in media, but media pretty much dictates through image and messaging. And I just think we fall in line in most instances. I don't think we're critical at all. I don't even think we're paying attention at most levels. Just listening to the call and becoming aware of the deep history. And I got some understanding of the deep history. I know that the average young person, and I'm saying young in contrast to everybody on the phone, but I'm talking Gen X, has very little insight around these issues, topics, and conversations. And we can see it through the kind of candidates that we have. We can see it through the kind of media that we digest. We can see it through the way we live our lives. So I don't think we're critical at all. I think that's part of the problem.
Mm-hmm. Do you think maybe we're not critical, but we criticize, and we don't know how this works? What do you think?
I think we criticize from a place of disdain in our lives, but I don't think we're critical with an understanding, right? And I think that's easy to control and manipulate.
So what's the answer? How do the young people disengage? What happens after that?
Yeah, they have disengaged, but I think the answer is what we're doing right here on the phone, having a conversation, right? I think, just like the Archdiocese signed with Cornell West, they signed him for a reason, because he has information and he goes against the fray. And the system of corporatism, everybody that conversation or that construct, you're likely to alert people. And when that alarm system goes off, you'll get a different reaction. But we've not had a candidate, at least in my lifetime, challenge that the oligarchy. We've not, what we're seeing with candidates like Cornell West is that he threatens the empire.
Well, you've had a few candidates who threaten the empire. They just get taken out. I mean, because that's because the empire protects itself. The empire, what did they say? The empire fights back. Doctor, it fights back. Our power protects itself. I am not mad at it. We just need to know how to fight the power. Dr. Gibbs, I mean, where do you see this going? Because I think that, as Reverend Dr. Uri said, you are. I mean, I hear Reverend Dr. Uri. I hear you because I'm loath to. It's not even a disagreement. I think that what we're doing is splitting hairs here and really trying to braid all the finer pieces together. I think that you are looking at the DNC and the corporate interest, Dr. Gibbs. I mean, I think you're looking at a whole many pieces here that are coming together to try and shut down these voices, Dr. Gibbs. And that, to me, is quite disturbing. Dr. Gibbs, you there? Well, Dwight McKee, your thoughts?
Yeah, and then understand the big elephant, the white elephant, big elephant in the room, is that Biden is a practicing Catholic.
Mm-hmm.
He goes to Mass every day. And so it's not like he is neutral in this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been in their interest for him to be the president. Because as a practicing Catholic, a lot of his issues, a lot of his positions reflect their values and their interests, which is why they worked so hard to get him in office in the first place. We have to also again understand the nature of these institutions are not as pristine as they would represent themselves to be. One of the things that come out, that's why I said people should go and look at The Godfather, which is based on real facts and real experiences, is one of the things that Michael Corleone says, as he's trying to cut a deal with the Catholic Church, and they double cross him, the Catholic Church double cross the mafia. He says, I'm in the mafia, but I'm finding out the higher things go, the more corrupt they get. And then this Catholic Church may be more corrupt than the mafia. He becomes disappointed when he looks at the reality of the Vatican banks and the kind of deals that they're making and the kind of double crossing they're doing. Understand now, part of what that's about is that what they're doing is the money from the mafia, they're trying to use the Vatican bank to launder the money. And so one of the things that came out of the investigation of the Vatican bank is that a lot of these mafia corporations from around the world use the Vatican bank to launder their money. And so you're looking at, and this ain't just me talking, I'm saying do the research. You're looking at a fairly corrupt situation that some people argue has been corrupt for years and years and years and years. And there's no reflection on Catholics. And there's no direct reflection on some priests and some cardinals who are very decent, believing, serving people. I'm not indicting them, but I'm just saying that there's been a system of corruption at the top of some of these institutions that precede and overwhelm even the people in these institutions that are trying to do good. Like there's a lot of doctors and nurses that really want to save lives, but they had to run head on into the pharmaceutical industry, who many of those are corrupt. Their primary goal is to make money, and the two interests collide.
Let me say good morning to Laura Bell. How you doing, Laura? And D Ray. Hey, you do? How you doing, D Ray? Regina. How you doing, Regina Diane Vartanian? I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Dawn O'Leary. Hey, girl up there in Minneapolis. I'm going to be back on the air there, hopefully in the morning. And it's not on AM 950 radio. It's not them. It's me. It's me. I'm trying to work out a lot of issues here. Robert Williams, Mercy Cohen Vasquez. How you doing, my dear sister? Ronald, sending you much love today. Robert Williams, Bob Smith. You said you just Googled Father Flavor's recent activities. He's planning a demonstration against the DNC for not doing enough for the poor and homeless in Chicago. They continue to make him pay. They've been trying to put him out, but his congregation will not let him go. Louis Chewy, how you doing? D. Ray, again, George. You said Jesus came talking about a kingdom and a government against the ruling government, so Dr. West could give a real history lesson to the media. And I think I heard Reverend Jeanette Wilson. Reverend Wilson? Do we have her?
You probably heard me, Santita. I was just getting ready to make a comment.
Okay. Oh, that's Dr. Shanina Knighton. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I was just going to add, I think it is interesting, and one of the gentlemen said it, the fact that issues are ignored and they constantly get swept up under the rug. And while I hear all of this stuff that's going on and we see and see all of this money that's being sent overseas, I find it mighty interesting how that audit of that missing $3.8 million, from the Department of Defense has kind of just fallen off the radar. Nobody's talking about it. But to me, if I was at a political debate, I would want to know, where is that money? How is that being rectified? How did it come up missing? How is it missed? Those are taxpayer dollars. So I do agree, and I think the theme of what I'm hearing is that some problems are more profitable unsolved.
Oh yeah. Well, no, you made a whole point. Lorraine Dunkley, hey, how you doing, sweetie? Bob Smith, Ty, how you doing? Good morning, my king. Mildred Banks, sending you so much love. Hey, we are both on the south side of Shy. Love it. Then Regina Hill, she said, I love Dwight. I get up at 4 a.m. Pacific Standard Time to listen to him. All praises to the Most High. The People Show with Mark Wallace. And you said, I'm not understanding why this is surprising as it relates to the Catholic Church. I've just never understood why Black people are even part of the church that despise Black people. We're not surprised. We're just bringing it up, and we're trying to bring up different issues, Mark, because people are not aware that the Catholic Church is a country, for example. Their financial interest, for example. People don't know all these pieces, Reverend Thurston. I mean, do you think they're surprised when they know, the finances, the sausage, watching the sausage get made, it ain't no nice process. You go, ew, wait a minute, I didn't know all that was in it. Is Reverend Thurston? Yeah.
Yes, people get totally turned off from church, from people, from God, once they got to get behind the scenes sometimes to see what's happening in the underbelly of the church space that they may function, worship in. It's an interesting dynamic back there, and everybody ain't ready.
But everybody ain't ready. But you know what, Reverend Thurston? But now the time it's here.
Yes.
So now what do? Do the people of St. Sabina, do the parishioners start picketing at the archdiocese? I mean, what is your responsibility as a member? Because to me, church is supposed to help me to grow spiritually. It's supposed to embolden me. It's supposed to make me a bigger person, better person, not more obedient, better.
Sure.
Right?
Sure, better. Yes. I think they let their voices be heard. That is the right thing to do. It's the just and moral thing to do. But at the same time, recognizing the beast that they're going up against, which has been noted in this conversation thus far. Make the voice known, make your perspective known, but recognize the beast that you're fighting against.
Recognize the beast that you're fighting against. So, but even you're fighting the power. You still have to fight it.
Still have to fight it.
Otherwise this just goes on and on and on and on.
Yes.
I mean, because because it has to make one begin to question anyone who comes in a pulpit. The expression, this Reverend Thurston, and this Reverend Dr. Urey, this Dwight McKee, this Toussaint, you know that the old expression has been and is still true. The freest and richest black person in America, particularly a black man, is the black preacher. But now we're seeing, you know, them co-opted and the message that they give to their parishioners, to their congregants, corrupted. How do we fight that? I mean, because you were the one who came on the show talking about these trips to what trips are that a lot of our pastors are going on. What's going on?
Israel. Yeah, the sponsored trips to Israel. Bring your congregation, bring your fellow pastors. Let us paint this picture for you. So that when we go to cut the damn food, you all have to get up in your pulpits and support us and make us sing like angels.
Like everybody's John Hagee.
Yeah, that part.
So I mean, what with the many of the pastors who have gone, how has that changed their message about Palestine as we see 1,000 churches?
Yes.
Tell me, speak to that.
Yes. I've seen, especially on their social media platforms, the propaganda that they're pushing, the false narrative, the revisionist history that they continue to perpetuate. I know one gentleman who had a conference call all week long when this thing really hit the fan, aimed at further indoctrinating his ministerial staff, his deacons, everyone in leadership at the church. And if you went opposite, he was monitoring people in leadership's Facebook page, and if you supported Palestine, you were called to a pastor's office.
What?
Yeah. Because the level of money that's been funneled his way, he has to support genocide.
Is anyone in his congregation questioning him? And no names, but is anyone questioning? Of course, I know you wouldn't, but I'm just saying, out of Pastor Thurston is very discreet and he is very appropriate. He would not do that. But I just wanted to let you know that we're not using those names because we want to keep things just kind of want to be as safe and as appropriate as we can be. Because this is a conversation that was not a public conversation. It's something to which he's privy because he's one of the top pastors of one of the biggest black churches in the nation. So talk to me.
I've had members from that congregation that have reached out to me, that follow me on Facebook and see my stance and position supporting Palestinian brothers and sisters. And they raised the question, what do I do? How do I handle this? I'm uncomfortable. And I just shifted into a pastoral care mode and method. Challenge them to be honest about their feelings, to express their feelings to their pastor, to move to the place where they are able to recognize that we won't always agree on everything. And if this leader is feeding your soul and has been feeding your soul on a consistent basis, recognize that grandmama sometimes put stuff on our plate that we didn't like. It didn't sit well with us, but we kept going back to grandmama's table. And so this too shall pass, but recognize that you need to relate on the side of justice and equity and stand against genocide and apartheid.
I mean, Dwight, what do you make of that? I mean, of these pastors who've taken this money and it is completely reshaped, or should I say perverted. Well, it is shaped. It has shaped their message, particularly in such a time as this.
Yeah, I think Pastor Thurston hits it right on the head. It has been a very corrupted force, and there was a calculated effort to corrupt the black church, which has always been the center of social justice and equity. But I guess it was Reagan had a plan.
Mm-hmm.
That what he would do is that he was going to make money available to the black church for privatized ventures, whether it was daycare or social service. He would allow, though they were nonprofits, a means by which the government could invest in a private institution, religious institution, it will not be a conflict of interest. It will not affect their tax statute. And so he focused on the black church particularly and made a pool of money available to them for that. But the precondition of that was they could not be involved in some political activities. And he declawed the black church in a lot of their power because many of those black preachers who were struggling and needed money took the money, thinking they would use for the greater good, and paid the price later on that they lost a lot of their freedom and a lot of their authority. Brother Gerson, you may want to speak to that.
Yes, those opportunities were made available, and this is the challenge in black church. I know I don't take us too far off track.
No. I mean, wait a minute. Let me say this. This is on track. Because to me, this is all part of the broader discussion about the messaging, about the politics of the church. I mean, people need to understand the church is such a political instrument that our founding fathers said it must be separated from government. Pastor Thurston.
Yes. This is why I consult with churches, and I always challenge leadership of churches as relates to boards and deacons and things of that nature who try to put pastors in handcuffs and don't want to pay them appropriately, things of that nature. And I push back strongly against that because I want them to recognize that if you don't take care of your pastor, somebody else will. And you never know these strings and the agenda that's attached. And so to allow your pastor to be free to speak truth to power, he, her, their family needs to be taken care of. And as Dwight just mentioned, you find groups of pastors and preachers who are not able financially to sustain and to survive personally or the ministry, and government steps in, offers gifts and surprises and jobs and land and grants and opportunities that often have strings attached. And you have pastors that are in the city that they raise up and push back against a mayor, and then the mayor comes in and says, what commission do you want to be on? What board you want to sit on? What's the vision for your church? I remember when I first came back to New Covenant and started pastoring, I had a business from some people from Mayor Daley's office. Stephen, what you want? What would you like? And my response was nothing. Freedom. Thank you. Have a great day. Because if something raises up, I need to be able to leverage my power, my platform to speak truth to power.
I mean, and you do that, Pastor Thurston, and Pastor Yeary, because ultimately, and Toussaint Werner, if you abuse your power, if you don't use it properly, you will lose it. I mean, and particularly out in these streets today, Pastor Thurston and Pastor Yeary and Toussaint, and Dwight. Let me just start with you, Reverend Thurston. You don't want your congregation giving you the side eye.
That's right. Exactly. Once you lose trust, authority vanishes.
Reverend Yeary?
Well, I think the one thing we have to be careful of is that we do not practice a colonial theology, where you have duties and obligations without authority and liberation and agency. A lot of times that becomes the issue because the means by which you have to sustain the work often puts pressures on you to have certain conversations. And if you're not aware of the transaction costs, you can sometimes find you unwittingly entangled in something that you're not going to soon unravel. It's like taking money from a convention that has certain principles about who can and who cannot practice in the pulpit. By the time you use their money to build your church, you're locked into their theological perspective and opinion. So we got to be clear on that. The agency and the authority, the independence of the black preacher and the black church writ large has to be protected, and it cannot be compromised simply in the course of an expedient transaction. The other part is that we have to have our own source of historical data. We cannot rely on someone else's interpretation of the story. I think Pastor Thurston mentioned revisionism. There's a lot of historical revisionism going on right now because we don't seem to be operating from our own sense of independent, confirmed, tested, confident historical analysis of data, we tend to put ourselves in a position of being dependent on somebody else's story about our story. And so we have to be real careful and really intentional that one, we're clear on what the history really is. Two, we're clear on the political theology that we bring to the conversation, because at the end of the day, we recognize that the engagement of religion writ large has been a challenge to human authority. It is political as part of its mission and its function. Otherwise, we have no tangible value. We become, as Emmanuel Kant would say, we become the opiate of the people. We're only here to sanitize and to make them feel comfortable in the midst of their suffering until euthanasia sets in and death finally takes over. And so if we're going to be living examples about what this work must be, we have to make sure that we're doing the work to know our own story. And when the hymn writer said, I love to tell the stories of my kingdom glory. I'm not until I get it and tell it, I'm going to tell it here. And so part of our agency, part of our opportunity, and part of our obligation, quite honestly, is to make that as our congregants are wrestling with what do I do, how do I look at this, is we make sure that we give them the right historical frame, we give them the right biblical information, so that they can then take the agency that is theirs and operate freely as liberated people to make their voices heard. Otherwise, we're just creating puppets. It's a whole sideshow. It's like we're running a grown folks version of Sesame Street, where we have a lot of puppets trying to navigate reality. That's not how this operates. And so, if the church is going to be the church, if we're really going to reclaim the power that we say we have, and I think it's being tested actually in real time, can we really mobilize as a force the people in our pews? Is we have to make sure that they not only understand what steps to take, they have to understand why they're taking the steps and how it's going to affect their daily lives. Otherwise, we're just playing into those.
Well, Toussaint, does the church have power today with Generation Xers and those who are younger, or is it seen as a relic of the past?
I think it's seen as a relic of the past, actually. But I agree with the last speaker, though, right? We can't minimize the impact of the church on all of society, right? And I think that we have to be clear that I said yesterday, I quoted you for the right, and I'm a little more cynical than most of the people speaking. I quoted you for the other day, and because I have a quote that says, until you fully understand white supremacy, everything you think you understand about it.
Okay, I need you to say it just a little louder, a little louder.
I'm sorry. Nelly Fuller has a quote that says, until you fully understand white supremacy, everything you think you understand will only confuse you. And I tend to live by said quote. I think revolution isn't always successful, but it's always necessary. And when we recognize it to the last people, when we say we're just creating puppets, I think that's the paradigm in which we're experiencing. Right? So there is no challenge to power. And that is my greatest concern.
Well, I mean, these structures are in place, Toussaint. I mean, what do young people propose and younger people propose as an alternative? I mean, you got to fight the power in order to get the power. What do they propose be done?
I agree 100%. I think that's the challenge, right? With revisionist history, when you think you're fighting the power, you're actually aligning with the empire in most instances. What we deem as freedom is capitalism, and that's a falsehood, right? So that's what I mean when I said we don't understand the tenets of white supremacy. So what we're fighting for is really further ingratiating us into the slaughter system, you know. So conversations like these, conversations like Cornel West would have probably had he not been denied the opportunity to speak. Those are all instances where you're going to be challenging the power system, right? But when every institution is colonized, essentially, there's nobody threatening that power system. So we're creating generation after generation after generation to think that this is just the way things are supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about revisionist history. I've heard people talk on the phone today, all the way from back to the crusade. I challenge anybody on this phone to go speak to an 18-year-old in the city of Chicago, maybe anywhere, and ask them about the relevancy of Dr. King, who was, 60 years ago. We just had a conversation about the Crusades.
Mm-hmm.
And I challenge you that you probably couldn't get a 18-year-old to give you a direct answer to who Dr. King was.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know what? That honestly, that was a Boston University study that was taken in 1981, not even just 13 years after his death. And 2/3 of the respondents who were students at BU did not know who Dr. King was. So there's something that we are missing. There's something that we are missing. But Jewish kids don't miss it. They go to Hebrew school, Dwight. Um, they are indoctrinated with their history, with their perspective. And I think that we need to do the same. As much as we are, as upset as we are, Pastor Thurston and Reverend Dr. Uri and Toussaint Werner, about Black history being taken out of the schools, please put them in the church. Why are you going to have people? How are you going to have people who misunderstand your history, misrepresent your history, don't want you to know your history? Why would you have them teach you your history? Something is off here. Not saying that you shouldn't teach a full history, but you know, it's not even that, Dwight. I mean, so you know. Mm-hmm.
And you what to say if you depend on your slave master to educate you, you're gonna never be a slave. Because you will never be miseducated. One of the good things that happened yesterday when we started pulling in, I'm so proud of Tucson.
Well, let people know what happened yesterday, because many people who are listening, because we're going to have to start making that virtual. Many people don't know what happened yesterday and where we met and why.
Well, we had a generational meeting at Push where young guys like Tucson came over, who are sophisticated but has been traditionally a little disconnected from the civil rights movement itself, who they again are re-involving themselves. And then Reverend Jackson and Sister Jackson and some scholars,
Bob Starks. Mm-hmm.
Bob Starks, and bridging the gap, and we're sharing the legacy and the history with some of the young people, and they're sharing their vision and their energy with us. And so it's been really invigorating. So now we're using our independent institutions to be able to teach real, real history and real events, and from some people who were there, who were directly involved in it. So it's not seasoned. It is raw, and no chaser. And I'm challenging us to do that everywhere, because that's what Jews do. Jews don't learn their history in the schools. Jews learn their history in the synagogue on Saturdays. And we have to kind of go back to that, because that's really where we first begin to learn it, was in our churches.
Pastor Thurston?
We have to go back to that.
Absolutely. I'm sorry not to interrupt you, Dwight. Please complete your thought. I apologize.
No, it's good. And it's been such a joy. I mean, yesterday we began to argue about hip-hop and, and whether it was a culture or a demographic. And Tucson was able to see both perspectives and say, I understand that it's really, not so much of a culture as it is a demographic. And that negritude is a cloud that it rains down from, like jazz, like gospel. So it allows us to protect our history and our legacy. And so I was just very excited about that, about these new possibilities. Because a lot of people don't really know what we talked about today in terms of the Vatican thing. And the role that they play, and the fact that they have been heavily invested in our arms industry. And they have a real side in this, and a real interest in this. A lot of folks don't know that Father Marquinhos, who ran the Vatican thing, didn't come from Rome. He came from Cicero, Illinois, which which was the home of Al Capone, in real bedposts for the mafia. Cicero used to be known as one of the mafia capitals. And so Marchinchis, they didn't come from Seminary. He came from Cicero and played a major role in the corruption of Vatican Bank. And the bankers got murdered coming out of those scandals. So they would be silenced. And that's why I said that when you go back and see movies like The Godfather
3.
and really understand them, you got a whole different understanding of what you're looking at.
Pastor Thurston, you deal with Faith Under 40, these young people who you're trying to. What is Faith Under 40 about? And why have you been focusing on young people really throughout the entirety of your ministry?
Yeah, it was created to reach out to that black hole in the church, the black church of younger people who disconnected from the church, disenfranchised by the church, all of that. And I wanted to create a safe space for them to learn, grow, participate, and have power and agency. I wanted them to be centered. And I focus in that realm because growing up, I had the fortunate opportunity of being raised around the movement. Growing up at Push, there at the house there, Santita, crawling around on the floor while Reverend was over in the room talking to who knows who about major issues and policy matters. And I'm just playing around, not paying attention. But everybody doesn't have that opportunity and that option. And so I've sat at tables, I've been in conversations, I've got access to a Dwight who's a well of wisdom. And so I wanted to create space where younger people could have opportunity to tap into other people and show them as well that this space ain't just a space for our more seasoned saints, but it's a space for us. And so wanted us to keep connected. I hate that I didn't know about what happened yesterday because I would have loved to be in that room in space, as it's important that we continue to train younger people, because the ones that we celebrate, like Reverend Jackson, they were young when they did this work, when they were making a major impact, because it takes the strength and the vitality of youth and the wisdom of our sages and senior saints for us to beat the devils that are being birthed day in and day out by people that don't like us and don't want us and see us as a thorn in their flesh in this place called America.
Well, I'm going to take responsibility for that because you and I talk all the time, and I didn't talk to you about that, so I apologize for that. But no, because I'm also thinking about you in the church, and you've got this, this new pastorate, and so I'm a little protective of you because you're like my baby brother. So I'm like, no, I kind of want to let him decompress, but it's an emergency now.
Yes.
And we are meeting at Push on Sundays at 4 at 930 East 50th Street, coming up with answers. And your voice is critical. Your thinking is critical because you are a young man with a huge church that you've been able to hold on to, that you are seeking to not just hold on to, but to grow it and to keep it relevant going into this new age. I mean, what happens when young people see something, when they see Dr. West disinvited, Pastor Thurston? I mean, how do they react to that? And do they have any reaction?
One, we hope, as Tucson made mention of, we hope they know who Dr. West is.
Oh, well, now there's that.
Let's start there.
Okay.
But, yeah, so I think there's that education and information gap. We often use the term millennial, and we think that anybody is a millennial that's younger than us. Millennials in some stages now are grandparents. It's 3 generations behind underneath millennials. And so we've got to pay attention to these younger people who are disengaged, that don't know. Nobody told them the story. Nobody sat them down and included them in conversations. So that's where the first portion of this has to be. And then for those that might know of Dr. West, who he is, what he does, what he brings to the table, it just depends on where they are in their life. Does this matter? I've heard from a lot of younger African Americans, I ain't voting in this next presidential election because I have no options. I ain't going with genocide Joe, and I don't play with Trump. So people are kind of all over the spectrum. And I think, again, we always hear it, but it's real. Education matters, and informing our younger people of what's at stake, who the players are, and giving them voice to navigate this space with us.
Do you think there's any hope of getting them? Is there anything that can be done to convince them to get involved in this election in March, let alone in the fall?
We have to show them how it's directly impacting them. Walking through. When this happens, then this happens, and this happens, and this happens. And show it. It's like with my preaching. I've got educated people and uneducated people. And I've got to, in that 30 minutes that I have, connect dots from the wasness of then to the isness of now with that biblical text. What this got to do in my life, Bill, is the question. What this got to do with me raising these kids and their daddy ain't around? Or their mama is crazy and I'm trying to make this family work. I've got to make it real. And so we've got to make it real from a political sense in the lives of younger people.
Reverend Dr. Yeri, I know you got to go to court. How do you, because some of our young people are disengaged. They're so disappointed they're just done. What do we do?
Yeah, actually, I've just parked in the parking garage at the courthouse on the way in.
Well, let's get your closing thought, and we wish you well at court today.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. I think we have to learn how to communicate in new ways. Every emerging generation finds itself rubbing up against what has become the legacy generation, the piece they inherit. This is a generation that's working with its own Play-Doh, shaping what its own future is going to be, and we've not engaged them enough to be able to see through their eyes what they want for their future. And I think part of that is to help them explore their curiosity, not necessarily to give them the right answers, but to help raise the right question that's stoking them this passion to be as creative as they choose to be in this moment. But we also have to tell the truth about what the consequences are. You can choose to sit out, but choosing to sit out does not allow you to avoid the byproduct, because there's still going to be an effect. There's still going to be an outcome that's going to affect your day-to-day living. And all you can then say is, I left my future to chance. Not to my participation, not to my engagement, not to my critical analysis, not to my criticism or critique. So part of this is we've got to create agency within our young people to speak their truth, to be able to raise their points and to make sure that they're heard. And one of the challenges we run with, and this would be what I think the community is saying, is we're saying to the Catholic Church, you may be able to control where we engage Dr. West, but you cannot control if we engage Dr. West. We've got to make sure that we don't create this appearance that we're dependent on the sanction of the system to be able to achieve the outcomes that we want. That's what being revolutionary is all about. We have options and we choose to exercise them, and we will exercise them as we see fit to make sure that the objectives that affect our day-to-day lives are never lost in the process of translation, leaving it to some arbitrary structure to be able to say to us who we can and who we cannot listen to, who we can and cannot dialogue with, who we can and cannot sit with for the sharing of ideas. That you cannot control. You may be able to control spaces, but you cannot control minds. My mind is beyond your reach. And so I choose to use it and leverage it in the best way possible. And so maybe we can be in a virtual space and keep on moving. Because there is no place called the Catholic Church that controls the internet. Do what you got to do and be revolutionary in the process. And then let the Pope be the Pope and let the chips fall where they may.
Render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's, and unto God that which is God. Sending you so much love. Have a successful day in court. We have Reverend Jeanette Wilson. My apologies. We get these lines jammed up, and we call you once, and then it says that's it. But we are pulling together this show as we continue to shift tracks, and I will be back up on AM 950 radio. I'm going to call them, because they are very eager to have me stream live and to keep me on their air, and I thank them for that. Reverend Wilson, what are we to make of this? We've been talking about the fact that the Catholic Church indeed is a country. It's not just a church. They have embassies, they have conflicts, they dispense passports. The Pope is a head of state. they're part of the reason that our founding fathers said, no, you got to separate church and state, because they knew what was up, right? And yet the hypocrisy is that they said, well, he's a political candidate. He was not going to speak as a political candidate. Well, he's a political candidate. He can't speak. And they're a political entity. Talk to us, Jeanette Wilson, Pastor Jeanette Wilson,
Good morning.
who is also a lawyer. Now, that's
We're having,
important.
this discussion. I listened to Dr. Gary, and I think first of all, he was not giving a political speech. Number one, he was there. He's been there 24 consecutive years during African American History Month. So this was his annual visit to the church. He's not a candidate that's there for the first time, not a candidate seeking to gain votes. He was a friend of both the pastor and the church that has supported the opening or closing of African American History Month at that church for 24 consecutive years. That's number one. And so if you say a candidate for office cannot speak at the church, then I ask the question, President Biden is both president and candidate. Can he speak? So what are the limits of this political speech? Can any person who is in office, and we have a number of people who are elected officials who during African American History Month would visit various churches, can they speak? Even though they are elected to office and yet running to stay in that office? How does this work? How far are we going to control free speech? What are the limits of it? And so Dr. Yuri said, well, you could just speak on the internet. That's true. Who controls that? How far do we allow these systems of oversight to reach into the private minds and lives of ordinary people? Are we becoming a communist state, a state that is controlled by everything that the government controls everything? And there's no free will, no free thought. They tell you and they control what you see and hear. Is that the way America is becoming? Is the Catholic Church that far reaching into the lives of members of local congregations?
Well, but
That's
Pastor,
the question.
let me ask you this, because it seems to me that America's always been that way. You can look at J. Edgar Hoover, and Reverend Jackson often says we must remember that America, at its founding, is a right-wing nation. It favors the oligarchy, it favors slavery, it espouses it, genocide, colonialism, and all of that. That having been said, okay. We understand how this works, but we still have to fight it. And because you still had a J. Edgar Hoover, you still had the New York Times and all of these mainstream media entities that continue to shape a narrative that runs counter to the needs and aspirations of the people.
Well, but the other thing is, the idea that we can determine just for the church, and there are multiple churches. Many are not Catholic, they're Baptist, they're Methodist, and so can each of the leading bodies, the people that lead these different denominational and ecumenical bodies, do they have the authority to determine for every church under their jurisdiction what can and cannot be done? For example, Southern Baptists still ban women from the pulpit.
Mm-hmm.
Several Baptists still ban. Is that something that is within the authority of that ecumenical body to dictate when the majority of the parishioners are females? Just as they had a convention this past week, 4 Baptist conventions, 4 African American Baptist conventions met in Memphis, and one of them is clearly against women pastors and women preachers.
Mm-hmm.
And so Gina Stewart, Reverend Dr. Gina Stewart, was asked by the Progressive Baptists to speak. And all 4 conventions were joined together to meet, but not on that issue. And so several of the pastors, the members of the National Baptists, boycotted her. The president did not attend the morning session, said he was busy otherwise. And here we have a situation where the majority of the parishioners are female, and yet you disrespect a woman. So this kind of sanctioning and deciding who can participate at certain levels is moving rapidly in this country. Yeah, you remember there was a time when women could not vote. There was a time when blacks could not vote. And so every seems like every season we're fighting these unrealistic and unfair controls, and yet we say we are a democracy.
What do you think the responsibility of the congregants of Saint Sabina is? Should they go and have a demonstration at the Archdiocese of Chicago? I mean, should they just take this?
Well, as you know, this church has been fighting over decades just to maintain their pastor against a system that moves clergy around arbitrarily based on who's in charge, who's the head of that diocese. They come in and they make decisions about where you should be. And it's the same thing that happens in United Methodist churches. It's like they're playing chess with congregations and people. They just move them at will. And
Well, wait a minute, but Pastor, but it seems that when someone gets too personally popular, they got to remove you. Or am I misreading that?
As I'm saying, that's a political move, because that sometimes the local parish priest is more popular than the cardinal, who is over the diocese, and a local parish priest like Blager, who has a larger parish than other parishes in the city of Chicago. Others are closing and having to consolidate because they are not growing, they're declining. And this is happening in many major mainline denominations in the city and around the nation. You have churches that are closing and having to be merged with other congregations because they're not meeting the needs of the community. They're not addressing congregants in a 21st century way. And so they're losing members. And that's not just the Catholic Church, it's United Methodist. It is all of your mainline majority denominations are suffering based on these arbitrary rules that people are not complicit with.
Yeah,
they're not compliant with.
You know, Reverend Thurston, you've been talking about that, I don't know, since you were a child. I mean, so what's the answer here? Because you now have this immensely popular figure who was coming to talk about history, but it's not even arbitrary. Just in a calculated way, the archdiocese said, "No, you may not hear his voice from your church. The church doesn't exist if the congregants aren't there."
Well, that's one thing. And the thing is, the church has always been the voice of the people. It was, even during slavery, you had the Anabaptists and the Quakers who were opening their churches as part of the Underground Railroad. So if the church is not free, then we're not free.
Well, I'm going to get closing thoughts from everybody today because the church is not free. We're not free. And you know what, Pastor? We have to have a conversation, and maybe we can do that tomorrow or the next day, about women not being allowed in these pulpits.
It's crazy.
No, I mean,
the majority of the congregants, we fund these churches, and yet we can't be in the pulpit. We can't pastor churches in many denominations and many locations.
And but there are many pieces to that, because I was speaking to, not to get too far out there, but I was speaking to a very dear friend of ours, who's an iconic pastor. And I was asking him about the selection when he was retiring for a new pastor. He said, I did have a couple of women who were in the group. He said, but interestingly enough, many women in the church would not accept her. So it's like we're fighting on a lot of different levels. I'm going to let you close this out. But Toussaint Warner, I'm so glad that you have been with us today, and I hope that you will know that you're part of the family and that you are more than welcome to come back at any time because we do need your voice. What are your thoughts about what we've been discussing today?
Me,
Yes, of course.
I think that,
No. I was speaking of two. No. Hold on, Dwight. I was speaking of Tucson.
oh, okay. I
Mm-hmm.
thought so.
Mm-hmm. Is Tucson still there? Okay, Pastor Thurston, are you still there? Yeah, we might have had some drop off. Okay, Dwight, you, and then Chaparral, are you there?
I am Santita. You have the white and Reverend currently.
Okay, what would you like to say, Chaparral? I know you got something on your mind.
Well, Santita, listening to the conversation today, I just think that, what we're seeing is definitely censorship for Dr. West to be disinvited to speak. I think it calls into it's shocking. It's shocking, but not shocking.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that they are making a calculated decision. The Democratic Party is making a calculated decision to basically silence any opposition.
So wait. Hold on. Let me stop you right there. Let me interrupt you. So you think the Democratic Party is in this too?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I think they're making moves to strategize and to silence anybody who's going to come to oppose Biden, because they see what the numbers are saying. So they know that Black people right now are disenchanted with the Biden administration,
Mm-hmm.
and so they see that there is, even though they say that Cornel West is not a credible threat, but he is, because those votes he will pull away from Biden, and the thing is that what we're seeing is that people are actually looking for a different alternative to the Biden administration, because the reality is that he feels that if he silences all the opposition, then he doesn't have to answer to the Black agenda. And what he's failing to realize is that he can silence us all he wants, but it's not going to curtail any votes for him. Because I think that for one, the Black people, and especially the young people, are truly standing on, as they call business, standing on business when it comes to him funding our initiative, with the Civil Rights Act, the George Floyd Justice and Police Act, the student loan debt relief, contract. All of these things are important to us because our lives have to begin to change for the better. And so it's not just, you can't shoot folks no more. We're not falling for that okey-doke. And so what we're seeing is that, they continue to play these games, but joke's gonna be on them. And it's okay. If people are willing to, if people are, they say, well, they're not scored or now not scored, if people want to play the game, let's play it. Let's play it.
So do you think that young people are going to sit out the election in the fall, or will they vote in another way, or will they be or will there be a mixture?
I think it will be a mixture. Some people will definitely sit out. And like I say, not voting for Biden doesn't automatically translate into a vote for Trump, but it will actually translate to a third party vote, as well as some people will actually sit out. And you don't want people to sit out, but the reality is that people are like, no, I'm not going to compromise anymore, because you have promised and promised and promised and promised, and you have not fulfilled your obligations to us. And then you thumb your nose in our face, and you're like, okay, wait another 4 years. No, we're not doing it. No, we're just not doing it. It's okay. Our lives have not changed, whether it was a Trump administration, a Bush administration. We still have the short end of the stick every time. So whether it's Obama, whether it's Clinton, we still get the short end of the stick. So we need to see some legislative changes that actually mean something. So until we see that, I don't think that he got to get some excitement here. And right now, it shows that Trump has a 5% point lead against him.
Dwight McKee, before Pastor Jeanette Wilson closes us out.
Well, I think he just about said it all. Is that we as a church need to be vigilant. We as a community need to be informed. We as a people need to be energized and know that we're not just fighting for ourselves, we're fighting for helpless people all over the world. Or not helpless people, people who are being assaulted all over the world, who can't not sometimes directly defend themselves. And Christ calls us to come to their defense. But you can't come to their defense in ignorance. Can't come to their defense of apathy. And one of the things that he uses the church for is to invigorate us and to energize us with his spirit and his calling, and he charges us to use that. He tells us to put on our armor. We in a fight, and we need an armor for the fight. But he also tells us that once he gives us his armor, we got to, so we say we got to fight, although we got to die, we got to hold up that bloodstained banner. We got to hold it up until we die. And I appreciate this new generation of guys like Tucson and Thurston. That is their lives to that for that generation.
Amen to that. Reverend Jeanette Wilson.
I think the churches, people of faith must come together, and we can host a citywide Black History Month celebration featuring Dr. Cornell West. They cannot control our desire to hear from someone who is a student of history, a participant in the struggle for liberation of our people. That's number one. I think we have to stop operating in church silos. We have to begin to be the united body of faith, and we can fight these issues better together than we can one by one.
What do you mean church silos? What do you mean by that? Denominations, different religions?
Denominational silos and individual church silos operating by themselves. And collectively, we can educate our people as we did when we decided to elect Harold Washington as the first Black mayor of the city of Chicago. Every time we've come together, we've won. And so now's the time that we must move aggressively. I don't want to hear that the young people won't vote. They will if we give them a reason to. And we have to motivate them as we did in the past. We can do it now. Cornell is running as a third rail to highlight those issues that all of us need to be concerned about. It's not just a Cornell West theory. We can energize the nation. And young people want to do something. They're not clear on the issues. They're clear on their discontent and their despair. They have student loan debt. They're unemployed. They're frustrated. But we have to turn that frustration into power. And I think we can. We have some time. The rest of this year, we must move aggressively now. The church and the people who believe. I am not in despair. I know what we can do if we all work together. And we need to let saints abide and follow flavor. No, they're not wrong. And tell us who to hear and who not to listen to.
I think people need to stand up and speak out and let people know who's in charge. The tail should not wag the dog.
That's right.
Really. I mean, it's your church. It does not exist unless you give it permission to exist. Any church, the Catholic Church or the church, none of these, the government does not exist without your permission. That's why people have been raising all of this cane about Gaza. This is happening with our permission. Until we stand up and say not one more dime for the genocide of the Palestinian people, it will continue. We're the ones.
We have the power, and if we have the faith, we have more than enough dunamis to defeat them.
That's right. And don't pay attention to when they attack the people who speak out. Don't pay attention to that. Everybody likes somebody, so people have intimate relations. Let that go. People struggle with their bills. I know I do. So let that go. I was glad to see Stacey Abrams running. She said, look, I'm broke. I ain't got no money, but I'm going to run on anyway and see what the end's going to be.
And she made a difference in it.
Huge
How
difference.
they address the issues for the masses of people.
And so I'm just saying, we've got to change what we're looking for. If you want perfection, you be that. Or you need to be a very, very wealthy person who could run for office and not need anyone else's money. Or you're going to be a person who has not lived, who's not made mistakes, and who's not lived long enough to correct them. It's all of that, y'all. Get your standards right. I remember Jeanette and Dwight as Reverend's about to lead a massive march on Tallahassee, on the capital of Florida, to save what would have been the presidency of Al Gore, who it turns out eventually we found that he actually won the whole election. What you do is you bring out, he had a child out of wedlock. Now this girl is grown. They got a master's degree or something and going on about her life, leading a very successful life. And we got a million dead Iraqis. And a broken economy. Because you got caught up in someone's personal life. And 20 years on, he and Mrs. Jackson have been married 62 years, been together 63 years. I mean, really, stop it. Stop, y'all. Let's get our minds together. I mean, and that's just something you saw with my own family, as if you don't have something in your own family.
That's right.
I mean, come on, y'all. You see how they have tried to get Father Flager out of his church against the wishes of the people. It's like, who are you to do that? What is that about?
It's about control, and we must move aggressively to fight what is happening to us. What they're trying to do, they're trying to control the airways. They're trying to control all the things that we think, what we can imagine, what we can see. They try to not support HBCUs, historic black colleges. Don't fund them equally to the white counterparts. We must fight all of that. And you have to have voices who are running that will put our issues on the table.
That's right. That's right.
Consistently. And that's why voices like a Cornel West are very important, because somebody has to speak for those who cannot talk, whose voices will not be heard on the world stage.
And you must pay them to keep them free.
Yep.
Okay, that's what you do.
All right, have a great day.
Sending you so much love. Let's talk a little bit later today so we can talk about women in the pulpit. I think that's a big issue. The resistance that women present from inside of the church, Reverend Wilson, but also the power structure that is in place that is clearly that is patriarchal and that resists. They don't mind women supporting and being the church, but you can't lead it. They
don't want us to lead the church. My aunt died and never heard me preach, but she did not believe women should preach.
Wow.
That's how deep this is. And she loved me. She would do anything for me but hear me preach.
And wait a minute, and wanted you to be a lawyer.
Yeah, but not preaching. Crazy as well.
Wait a minute. I got this niece. She's so smart. She can.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh no, you can't do that. I'm like, are you for real right now? I'm supposed to teach my children the moral lessons, but I can't do it from the pulpit. Something about that ain't right. I love you, everybody. Look, like and share. Tracy Smith says, don't get it twisted. It's all churches, not just the Catholic Church. I hear you. What about the for-profit churches? It's all of that. It's all of that. We were not singling out the Catholic Church. We were singling out a Catholic Church and an archdiocese. But we have been very careful. If you listen very carefully, Tracy, to say that this is an issue within the religious world. Mildred, good morning. Hey, sweetie. Mark, hey, how you doing? Sending you so much love. Bob Smith, sending you so much love. And Jewel, and saying hello. Angela Burns, you said, I believe in God. I believe in treating ourselves and each other right. It's vital that the church helps us with our spirit. It's also vital that the church teach financial freedom. We're supposed to be doing all the right things. And Jesus let you know that they were not in the right so much. And Choctaw Creek says we are the Aboriginal copper-colored natives of America. And my dad lied to the Supreme Court saying our people wanted to be called Africans. That was not true. He didn't go to the Supreme Court and say that. And he did not change our race without our permission. No, he did not do that. Reverend has been going to Africa since about 1970, 71, Choctaw Creek. And everybody, one of the things that he and my mother observed was that everybody in America is connected to their ancestral homeland, but Africans, but African Americans, but Black people. And so what he was trying to help us to understand is that we come from somewhere. That's it. That's all. When you get on a plane and you go to an African country, you will be about the only Black person on that plane. And the white Europeans and white Americans will find their way to you on the plane and ask you why you are on the plane. Okay, so Reverend didn't lie. You need to get clear on your history. Bob Smith, how you doing, sweetie? Yvonne, how you doing, sweetie? You said church and state must be separated. The moral standards of state have nothing to do with church. The state character is a reflection of the moral character of the state representing the stakeholders, we the people, the moral character of the right action, right speech. I hear you, girl. East is west and west is west. Neither shall the twain meet. That's what Bob says. The People Show with Mark Wallace says pastors and preachers have compromised the ministry of Christ for the ministry of money and fame. Christ takes a backseat to the biggest check writer. Today's church reflects little of Christ. Well, you know, I hear you, honey. And Jesus saw that when he overturned the tables. He said, you know, this is not my Father's house. Y'all ain't doing his work. This is not new. It's an old issue, everybody. It's an old issue. That part. That part, everybody. So I'm sending you all so much love today. Angela, you said, I remember you stating that it's important to hear from everyone. I agree with that because we all have ideas. Some good, some not, but we can still listen and be heard. And I hope that you know on this platform, you will be heard. And I want you to stay tuned to AM 950 Radio because I'm going to be back up on the air with them. And Robert Williams said that's a true story, Dwight, telling about Cicero in that particular scandal. Oh, yeah. Well, you know, growing up in Chicago, if you saw a car parked in the space too long, you assumed that it was a hit from a certain entity. Ooh, Robert says, very interesting topics today. All right, everybody. And you said you are up in, Cindy, you said you're up in rainy San Francisco. And you said, how come your live tube is completely different than the AM 950 radio? Well, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to work it out with AM 950 radio so that I can stream on their site. Okay, we're working through those issues right now. And Tracy says, if these young folks don't vote, how do they expect change? I don't know, but we have to reach them. You know, we have to reach them. We have to find a way to reach them and do it in love because they're very disappointed. And you have to be very careful with people who have been disappointed, who had hopes that people will do the right thing, then they see that they have not. Maria, how you doing, sweetie? How you doing, sweetie? Sending you all so much love today. Kenneth, sending you all much love. Carol, and be careful out there in California with all of this rain. And I'm going to let you all go. Got through some of these comments, and I wish I could play the opening song, but you know, I have another opening song that I'm going to, a song that I did with Chris Willis some years ago called Put Your Arms Around the World. And I am going to be using that too, because it was a song that I recorded with Orrin Hatch. Yeah, he wrote it and we recorded it, and he gave Chris and I an opportunity to produce a lot of the songs that we did, you know, which was really, really something wonderful. So you'll be hearing a lot of things. We're going to be doing a lot, but I want to thank you for staying with me as we have been undergoing this process in which we've been making some adjustments. I'm going to find this song for you so you can hear just a little bit of it. Okay. Let's see if I got this. see if I got that. See if I got it. 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 Okay. And well, I'm gonna get it for you tomorrow for sure. And I'm gonna get it for you for sure. Get it for you for sure. I think you will. Yeah, here we go. Here's a little bit of it. I went and found myself on Amazon Music. Who knew? Dwight, you still there?
I'm just listening.
Okay. I don't know if I'll be able to play it with you on here.
Okay, well, I'm gone.
Okay, all right, sweetie.
All right.
All right, bye-bye. All right, you guys. I'm going to do it right now. Let me see. See if we can stream it. Oh, it's saying I can't stream the song. Isn't that interesting? And let's see. I'm going to see. Well, you know what? I am going to. Let's see if they have it over on YouTube. Don't worry, I will find it for you, and we'll work it out. We will work it out. But I'm really glad. I thank you for being with us, everybody. Like and share. Please go to the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Like and subscribe there. We've got a lot of good things coming, and I'm very, very excited about this new chapter. My life has been nothing if not exciting. I love you, everybody. See you tomorrow on the Santita Jackson Show, just after 6 a.m. God bless you.